Hey, this is Mr. Suval with respect for greetings, right? I do have a tip that I would like to for what for people those who are passionate to do their best in language learning, right? That's a point that I came up with, right? So if you're learning a language as a foreign language and taking private classes and doing language exchange, one important thing that you must stop doing is that pretending that you understand everything being said when you don't clearly. Very important thing. You have to always put it in your mind while you are trying your best to practice your English with the intention of, with the intention of improving your communication capability in English language, right? That's the very important thing. So it doesn't matter if you are wrong. It doesn't matter if you don't understand what's being said. You can ask some clarifications questions back, right? Doesn't matter. No problem at all. We don't need to have that kind of mindset. We don't need to have that kind of mentality because that's what makes us to be crazy, right? That's the thing that makes us to be poor in communication in English language, right? That is the best thing that everybody has to put into action while you are trying your best to achieve the plan you already planned, the plan you already designed to achieve at the end of the day, right? That's the thing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you are wrong. You don't need to pretend if you don't understand what is said, what's being said. You can ask a kind of question to whom you are trying to have a conversation with if you don't understand what he is trying to say, right? What he or she is trying to say. It doesn't matter. You can ask, you can stop somebody when he is in a harsh form of speech and you can ask clarifications questions. It doesn't matter. But the way you interrupt him must be in a very polite way. That is a rule of language learning, right? Doesn't matter. So you need to have that kind of tip, right? Basically this tips, these principles work well for Ethiopians as a foreign language learner, right? So it doesn't matter if you don't understand what's being said. It doesn't matter. We don't need to pretend as we understand everything what's being said, right? We can ask whatever question we already have in the mind if it's not clear for us, right? You can ask whatever it is. You don't worry about the kind of mistakes you're going to make up right away while we are just in the journey of language learning. No problem at all. Because that's the thing that makes us to be slow. That's the thing that makes us to be poor in communication. We always bother about the mistake we're going to make right away while we are rehearsing, while we are practicing English. That's a very important thing that you have to put in the mind so far, the way how we can get closer to fluency in the very possible way, in an easiest way. You know what? English language by itself is an easy language that you can acquaint, that you can learn in a short period of time. It depends on the kind of commitment we have inside. It depends on the kind of consistency we are practically applying. We need to be consistent, right? You know what? Because English language learning, English language practicing is just like working in a gym, right? It's not something that expected to achieve overnight. It is a gradual process. It takes a long time to achieve to reach into the final destination. So, you know what? Lots of challenges are expected to happen while we are on the way to achieve the goals, the goals we already planned, the goals we already set from the very beginning. So we need to have the kind of mentality that we need to have the kind of energy that helps us to overcome whatever challenge life brought to us. It doesn't matter because facing challenges is a part of life. It's a part of our life. It's inalienable. It's inevitable in the progress of language learning. So we need to have the mentality, the way how we can cope up, how we can alleviate the problem that we are facing while we are on the way, while we are running to reach into the ultimate goal, into the final destination. It doesn't matter if you get something wrong there. It doesn't matter because it's part of it. Because making mistakes is a part of learning by itself. So we don't care about the kind of mistake we're going to make right away while we are rehearsing, while we are learning the language, right? There are lots of obstacles. There are lots of challenges we're going to face right away while we are running into the ultimate goal, into the ultimate destination, right? So we need to have the courage inside that helps us to cope up with, that helps us to alleviate the problem we're getting while we are on the way to learn the language, right? While we are in the journey of language learning, there are lots of problems we faced, right? So it doesn't matter whatever comes, We need to have the energy, the courage to cope up with it. We need to have the courage to face it, and then everything will be possible. So it doesn't matter if you are getting wrong while we are practicing English, right? Because it doesn't matter. We don't need to pretend as we understand everything what we learned, what we practice it. Because it's the thing that makes us crazy, by the way. It's the thing that makes us crazy. It's the thing that makes us to be slow, to be a slow runner, right? We don't need to be slow for everything we're gonna do right away, right? We don't need to stay focused on the challenge we're facing while we're the problems we're getting right away, right? Doesn't matter. We need to have the courage inside. We need to have the energy inside, because that's just like an engine, as I mentioned from the very. It's just like an engine that helps us to drive into the place where we are going, right? So we are full of ups and downs. We are full of ups and downs while we are trying our best to achieve the goal we already intended to do so, right? It doesn't matter whatever comes on my way. It doesn't matter whatever challenge we are facing while we are rehearsing it, while we are practicing it. But we need to have the courage. We need to have the commitment to cope up with it. We need to have the energy. We need to have the motivation inside. Because if you don't have kind of intrinsic motivation inside, you know what? It's not able to achieve. It's not able to get into success, right? That's that. So we need to have that. We need to build that kind of mentality inside. We need to have that kind of personality. We have to think always the positive, right? We have to think the positive, and we have to delete the negatives, right? We need to be optimistic for the thing we're gonna do right way. We need to be optimistic. We need to have the hope to do everything possible, right? So if you have that kind of personality, if you have that kind of mindset, there's nothing impossible in the planet of Earth. It depends on the kind of commitment we have inside. It depends on the kind of energy we are having inside, right? So we need to dedicate a lot of the time. We need to dedicate a lot of energy for the kind of work we engage it on, right? Unless we don't have that kind of courage inside, it's not possible to get closer to success. No, this life principle doesn't work only in language, and it works in the kind of work we work in, we engage it on in our lifetime, right? So we need to have the commitment for the kind of work we're working in. We need to have the energy inside. We need to have the motivation. We need to have the passion, the compassion to do that. So if you are in a way to do everything, if you are in a way to accomplish things in that way, perfection is inevitable, right? Success is inevitable. It's something mandatory. You may get it. You may achieve it at the end of the day, right? That's why. So English language learning is just like working in a gym, right? It's not possible to think about getting strength overnight. It takes a long process to get strong, right? To be muscular. So we need to practice it every day. We need to work in a gym every day. We need to have the courage inside. We need to have the motivation inside, because that is the thing that makes us to be much stronger than ever before. So we need to have that kind of mentality. It's just like working in it. The same is true for language learning, taking English language in particular. It's not something that you can achieve overnight. It's a gradual process. It is it's something procedural. We need to go through a long process to achieve what we have already planned from the very beginning. We need to go through the ups and downs. We need to go through different challenges. We need to go through a gradual process in order to reach into the place where we are going. So it's just like working in a gym. That's a basic example to show you how language learning is too much consistent, too much persistence as we are. So we need to have the kind of resilience inside. You know what resilience is? It's the ability to cope up with the problem we're facing in our lifetime, right? Yeah, recovering, facing the problem, recovering the problem we're facing, right? So resilience plays its part, by the way. Persistency plays its part to be good at communication, right? So it's just like working in a gym, as I have told you, right? We don't need to think about perfect. We don't need to think about strength. We don't need to think about being muscular, because it's not something we're gonna do overnight. It takes a long time to be muscular, to be strong. The same is true for language learning, right? We need to have that kind of principle inside, because that's the thing that makes us to be good at communication. We need to have that kind of life principle. We need to have that kind of mentality inside. So from the very